problem showed up is this discoloration on the floor here, and I decided to have a look underneath, and we have a problem here, some mold and deterioration. So apparently we have a problem with the toilet seal. So we're going to pull this toilet off today. First thing I did was shut the valve here, shut off valve. Now we're going to flush and get all the water out of the tank. And we'll have to do that a couple times. Okay, so we're going to use a shop vac to get the rest of the water out of here. Now we have to disconnect the water line incoming. It comes underneath here and this just turns off. You don't really need a tool. Okay, next the bolts come off. 2 mounting bolts. 1/2 inch nut on here. Basically just got one on the other side to take off as well. So at this point we'll simply lift the toilet up and set it down. As long as we have this toilet out, I'm going to overhaul it. So we'll just take the cover off. There's a couple things to take out to do this, and this is just to show anybody who hasn't done this before. It's not difficult. You got to take out this screw that holds the tank to the bowl, and there's another one, and down underneath there's a nut that you're going to have to get a hold of with a, I think it's about a 1/2 inch or 7/16 wrench. Things are a little rusty here, so. Then the other item that has to come off then is the water inlet here. This is all just a plastic fitting, and that has to come out in order to take this out. And this is probably over a decade old, and I just decided to change it all out. I'm going to get a replacement kit that includes all the seals, all new hardware. Now I have tools of the trade. It's got a straight blade screwdriver to get on here, and then underneath there's a 1/2 inch deep well, because they put quite a long thread and on this bolt that's under here. It's fairly long. Okay, so I'm going to put a little penetrant down here. Hopefully get through the head. Let that soak through a little bit. Did it on the other side too. Okay, so this has turned into a little battle here, but I brought another weapon to the battle. It's a Sawzall, and I noticed that there's room in here to get the Sawzall in and cut this seize down bolt out. While trying not to damage the toilet. It's more like it. That's one down. It occurs to me as I have the one out that I'm going to cut the other one off, but I better put a temporary nut and bolt in there, because when I cut the other one off there'll be nothing to keep this from just falling right on the floor. So just loosely. In order to cut it off, cut the tank bolt off on the other side, I've run into a little problem with this fitting, or with the water inlet. So we need to get that out of the way so I can get the Sawzall blade in there. Got a little trouble reaching otherwise. Let's get that off there. Now I should have a clear route to cut that last bolt off. And there it is. Okay, it's just off with a little temporary stabilizer bolt. This may not have been necessary since this rubber, the seal on here is pretty much hardened into place. There it is. A little nasty. Alright, time to install some new flush mechanism. Okay, some more parts to remove. Now this one has a... Wow! There it is. It's kind of a fancy one I'm taking out of here. It's a good time to clean this all up. It's an antibacterial cleaner here. Out with the garbage. Clean everything up nicely. This overhaul kit here, so by Korky. Okay, we're going to take, first thing we're going to do is put our flush valve in. There's a nut on here. It comes off with a small fiber, looks like a fiber washer. It should sit in this orientation. Now this tank is actually a 2.5-inch tank. And I called Korky to make sure it's going to be alright. And they said it should be fine. So this is a hand tighten on this valve. Hand tighten only, and it's tight. Again, it needs to sit off in that direction, orientation-wise, from the fill valve. Okay, next up is the sponge gasket. It's actually on the toilet itself. It's going to wind up sitting here. So this actually fits over the nut here. And when it's on there all the way. Okay, so now we're going to set the tank down. You have to be careful here because it's just basically resting on there. I'm going to put the mounting bolts in now. And what the hardware is a mounting bolt. The washer goes inside the tank, and a metal washer outside the tank, and then the nut. So what we're going to do is put these in and alternate back and forth. Okay, on the bottom of both. Starting off just hand tightening these back and forth. Okay, so I'm just alternating back and forth on the nut underneath. Got a 1/2 inch deep well here, or 7. That's 1/2 inch deep well. You don't really need to hold these screws on top because there's enough friction with the rubber washer. But they aren't going anywhere. They're not going to turn. The one concern is don't get it down, don't tighten it so much that you get contact between the tank and the bowl, because you will crack it. Okay, so now I'm alternating back and forth between these two, while keeping the keep the tank level. I think it feels close now. It starts to get a little tough to turn down anymore. It's probably time to call it a day. Yeah, that should be fine. You can see our gasket here. You know, it's depressed. It's down in there. You can tell we've got a good seal. Looking around it. See, it's deformed enough that should be fine right there. Okay, this overflow tube here is adjustable, and you want it an inch below the underside of the flush valve nut. So I measured that and then transferred a mark over to here. So that's the height that we're going to want this at, and then tighten it down. And the other thing is to be below the water line, but the water line can be somewhat lower here. It doesn't have to be where the old water line was. Okay, next we've got the fill valve here, and we're going to attach the line to it. Now this is adjustable, the height on it. You just turn it counterclockwise and lock it. That clockwise locks it. So with it locked, with it unlocked, I'm going to put it in the tank now and set the height. Probably the best way to get this height lined up right, put a ruler on there, put it in, now back, clockwise, other clockwise. Let's check and see if we got it right. Okay, we came up a little bit. Let's try it there. Bingo. Okay, next up, we've got our nut. This nut is marked this side up. So that's what we're going to put up. I'm going to put this back in now and just turn this. Just finger tight. Have this tube lined up with a little slot on there. Very tight. Yeah, that's good. And this tube lines up with that. Okay, we just double check all our heights. This is our critical level. It's right below the nut on the lever, flush lever. And we're an inch below that at the top of our tubing here. It's an inch below it, as you can see. Everything seems to be lined up right. And as we clipped off some of this line, because we don't want this thing bowed so much. Then the only other thing is the chain, and that's just a matter of getting the height about right. So there is, I think, a good length for the chain. A little slack in there when it's all the way down, not a lot. Okay, the next thing we have to do then is slip in our flange bolts. So it's just going to go in there. And the next piece that goes in is just kind of a keeper to hold these vertical. To aid in installation of the toilet. Sometimes these cause some problems. But even though I did clean this all up, believe it or not, this is clean. I mean, I look like it. Yeah, toilet standing by. Cut it on the little dolly there. Okay, so here's the wax seal I'm going to use. Harvey's Think Big Seat number 10. Okay, so we're just going to set the toilet up on the side here. Put our wax ring in. Should be about 70 degrees. Okay, with the wax ring on there now, stuck onto the bottom. Now we're going to position this over our screws, over our mounting screws. Okay, and making sure it feels like it's still centered in there. Feels right. Now we'll just get a helper. Pull these 2x4s out. Okay. So I'm just going to lift it, and if you will just pull those 2x4s out. That's good. Okay, it's on there now. You can see your bolts coming through. This is an extra wide, extra thick wax seal. So I have to work this down, putting some weight on it, kind of rocking it. Now the rest of the way we'll simply use our bolts. Just checking the centering of the bolts in the hole, left and right. I'm also checking here to see that we're pretty much centered on the wall here. It doesn't cock, toilet's not cocked. Because there's a fair amount of free play in there, you know, in those holes that are in the toilet. So now we'll just gradually work our bolts down. First one side, then the other. So we've got this seated on the floor. So we're just working these down. Deep well works good here, 7/16. We'll just do it back and forth, even them out. Pretty much when your toilet's on the floor, that's it. Doesn't take a lot. Definitely don't want to overdo the torque. Okay, now we just have our water connection. Try not to cross-thread this. It's tight. And this is finger tight as well. You don't want anything in there, not any Teflon tape, anything else. Just nice and tight, finger tight. I'll turn down the water valve. Watch the action here. See how water's flowing in. Checking for leaks. And you want to do this for a few days. Check for leaks to make sure something doesn't develop in any new install. Okay, got a good fill. Looks like we got a good water level. Pretty close to where it was. Let's watch the flushing action. It looks good.